Welcome to the Kratom Sobriety Podcast. This is Lauren, and I'm here with Ron. How are you today?
I'm doing great.
Good, good. Today, we just want to learn a little bit about you. So, how would you introduce yourself to someone if you just met them, like me?
I am older. I'm 58. I live in Southern California. I grew up in a real small town, actually on the Indian reservation. Made my way to Southern California and have been here. Been married to my wife for about 36 years. We have 3 kids and they're all grown. And I just am I work in sales. I'm super busy. I like to ride my bike to work every day. I try to live close. The key to Southern California living is not to live too far from where you work. So I keep everything tight and just have a pretty manageable life. Just getting older and trying to figure out how to do it, getting into my 60s.
Yeah. Okay. What hobbies do you have? Anything that you like to do for fun besides work?
I pretty much will ride a bike. That's what I like to do. I try to ride it every day to work and then I just exercise, do things like that. I like to go up to the high desert, visit with my parents. That's a lot of fun when I do that once a month. So I get to go see them and take my bike and just be alone in the desert, that hometown where I grew up. And just be married. It's just busy having grown kids and being married.
Same. I know. I've got my house is hopping too. We've got 9 between my husband and I. Okay. What is your Kratom quit date?
For about 4 of them, but the latest one was 44 days ago. I'm not sure the exact date. It was just right at the end of May, beginning of June is when I quit. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I've said it before, we say it all the time, it's not linear, and thanks for being vulnerable with us and let us know. We're all in different stages of our journey, so I'm sure you've got some wisdom on the stop and start as we all do. So, okay, so what's the first time that you encountered kratom or the shots or anything like that?
That's a really good question. I wanna say it snuck up on me, okay? But because of my personality, you have to be careful because you'll find things too if you're not looking, if you're not watching out, not carrying on a program. So it was in May of 2024. I went to a friend's house to go to dinner. We know these people for years. We're great friends. And he just happened to say in passing, "Hey, I've been taking a supplement. My extended family takes it down in Orange County, and it's really been helping them with anxiety and stress. And it's just like coffee." And I'm like, I'm a caffeine junkie. I take a lot of pre-workouts, drink your monsters, stuff like that, and energy drinks. But he goes, "You should try it." And I'm like, okay. It wasn't literally the most benign thing that you could think. And he gives me this powder. And I've taken Chinese herbs and supplements for health reasons, and it was awful. So that's what it reminded me of. And he gave me well, he's a big guy. I'm a big guy. And he gave me about 3 2-gram scoops, but they were heaping scoops. So he probably gave me 9 to 10 grams the first time. And I had a hard time dissolving it. I swished it around in water and I drank it, and I had a pretty mellow evening. But then I got home and I went to bed. And that's when I knew that there was something different. And it was a cheat code. I've heard that word before. And that's where it all started. And because I had previous issues with opioids, and we can talk about that too. But while I was sleeping, it's really odd. I will put my arms in the air and I'll just start massaging my arms in my sleep. And I was doing the same thing that night that I had done in years past. And I just went and I didn't fall asleep almost all night. I just laid there in a real chill state for hours. I'd taken such a big dose the first time, is what he showed me. And I was off and running.
Wow, I can't it's so crazy how all of us have such different experiences, but those of us that have had previous addiction before, it's almost for me anyway, it was like an immediate, "Oh, no.
Yeah. And I knew,
This has gotten really good."
yep. And I knew it. And I texted him the next day. I said, "Hey, how can I get some more of that stuff?" And he's, "Oh, I'll put a baggie towards," because he lives on a bigger property, "towards the front gate, and drop by and grab it." So he had it stuffed in the fence, and I drove past, and there was the baggie, and that was it. I quick Google search, figured out where he had gotten it from, and that was kind of interesting too. I had to drive an hour away to actually purchase it, and I thought and went pretty quick. I drove down. I thought I got to get my own stash because I knew he had limited stash. What a great word! And then I thought I'm gonna go down there. I had an address and a place. I thought I would go down to Orange County area, and I thought it would be like an industrial strip mall, kind of in a hidden spot. And this place was in a nice mall, all glass boutique. And I went in there and it looked like a tea and shop. And they had all the different strains in these glass jars. And it was like you were like gonna order a coffee drink. And I'm like, this is legit. This is a thing. This didn't feel shady. It felt super. The packaging was looked good, everything was fine, and then so we talked about it, she gave me the brochure. Of course, all the different strains, they have the explanations of what they do. I went to the energy stuff first. So whatever white strain, I was like, "Okay, I want the energy stuff," and then they hooked me up with I probably bought 200 grams the first time. It took me a while to go through that, but I was taking it probably 4 times a day. So I started off pretty quick taking about 40 grams a day through that summer, and I had to do it. It was it I didn't know I was addicted yet. I knew that I just liked dosing every 4 or 5 hours, and it kept me going all day long.
So let me rewind back for a minute. You said you did have previous history of addiction. What did that look
Mhm.
like?
Okay, so back in the early 2000s, played a lot of basketball. I'm a tall guy, and I had really hurt my back to where I couldn't hardly walk. And so I had to have some back surgeries. I had 2 of them and got squared away, but in the meantime, there was Vicodins, there was Percocets, Darbacets, even fentanyl patch. They put me on a fentanyl patch. And I was using fentanyl patch and taking opiates at the same time. It was a weird time of life because it was like they were just giving the stuff out freely. I did
Yeah.
not even have to ask for it. And then one time I went to the pharmacy and she goes, "You're here often refilling this Vicodin." And I thought, "Man, she's gonna bust me. God, they're gonna come down on me." And I'm like, I didn't prescribe this stuff to me." And she goes, "No, this comes in doubles. I should just call your doctor and see if you can get doubles." And I'm like, "Why don't you do that?" And so they started giving me Norcos, which are double Vicodins. And then it just was off and running. Before you knew it, I was up to 30 of those. Now, at the same time, and this is the part of the story that's hard to tell you. I have a youngest daughter who died of cancer, and this was at the same time we by the time we figured out that she was sick to the time she passed was 2 months. So, in December of 2006, we took her into the hospital, and we lost her in February of 2007. And it was at the same time I was taking mouthfuls of opiates. So
Okay.
I was processing that, and there's no processing that, and I'm still dealing with that. It's been years, but the long story is it was just a perfect, unperfect storm. So I started just taking pills and pills, and until I ended up in treatment for it. As a matter of fact, I ended up so badly, I couldn't go to the bathroom, just to put it
Mm,
nicely. Ended up in an
yes.
emergency room, and they had to help me, basically. And then when I was there, this doctor, I was very transparent with the nurse. And I told her I take all this Vicodin, and she went off. And a doctor came in, shut the door behind me, says, "Hey, I hear you take a lot of Vicodin." I go, "Yep." He says, "How would you like to try Subutex?" And I said, "I have no idea what you're talking about." He goes, "It's one pill every day, and we're going to get you off of that." And I went, "Okay, then let's do it. You need to be clean for 24 hours." I said, "I can't do that." He goes, "You need to." So I went home and for some reason I prayed that I wouldn't feel any of the effects because I knew what kicking pills was like. And and for some reason I got a relief. I got a break because I did feel okay for that 24 hours ish. And then I took my first Suboxone, and I remember being on the freeway when it finally kicked in on the way home. And I went, "Wow, this is great." But then that turned into abusing that too. My wife, who is a normie, is what we call her,
Yeah.
she would dole it out to me, but I would find it, I would sneak it. I would find it, and then I would go find pills at the store that look like it, break it up, I'd refill it again. It's horrible behavior, but man, it's what you become. That's for
Yeah.
sure. Now, kicking Suboxone was not, or Subutex is not easy either. That was like very much like some of the kicks on the Kratom, but it did help me though. So I will say that. Now, that being said, I got rid of that and I was still dealing with problems. So I started drinking heavily.
Okay. But I
And then I was also drinking cough syrup and DM, straight DM. And if you looked at me, I wore a suit to work every day and I didn't want to smell like alcohol. So I would take cough syrup and I was just obliterated out of my mind talking to people. And I don't know how I held it together. But then I ended up in treatment again. And these
yeah.
were both inpatient, or no, they weren't inpatient, they were outpatient. Excuse me. I had good insurance, but it was weird because the outpatient was at a facility and that was above a pharmacy. So it was like
Okay.
we're all getting clean above, and God knows, and I know what was happening below in the parking lot because people were
Mhm.
just getting their prescriptions, and but we stayed clean. We had a good group of people, and I stayed clean-ish through the years. Every once in a while, I haven't had a drink in 14 years.
Congratulations.
But I'm not a big drinker, though. I really don't care for it. And I've bought a lot of alcohol because my wife still drinks, and we go out and do that, and we have alcohol in the house, but I just don't have a taste for it. But if there's something laying around, if she has a prescription or something, it has to be locked up. It really does. And I have to be careful if I take cold medicine or anything. But that's how that went. But that's
So
that's my story. So I was a keg, a powder keg. Now I went to
so
meetings and I did NA and all that stuff. I just stopped. I just stopped the program, and then I was just trying to be as clean as I could, and it was really good for many years until May of 2024.
and I know you said you started with a big dose. And by the way, thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry for the loss of your daughter. I couldn't imagine, but and you were trying to do the best you could with what you had, I'm sure, to cope with that. So now with okay, so you said you did the Suboxone or Subutex and you were able to get off that. So you said it was similar to the withdrawal from Kratom. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it was like it was taking it out of your soul. It was not just physical withdrawals. It was like I
Mhm.
was haunted. And I
Yeah.
remember one day I didn't go to church with my wife, and I was convinced there was a monster in the house. So we had a big cement slab porch, and I was out laying on the porch because it was cool, just spread out, just
Mhm.
trying to feel the earth and the solid ground and the cool. And she comes walking up. She's just standing over me, going, "What are you doing?" I said, "There's something in that house, and I can't go back in until you go with me." And it was just like I was at the point where nothing made sense anymore, and everything in me was coming out. My emotions, feelings, my skeletal being. It just was bizarre. But
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly, but it just kinda slowly I tapered off and it just went away.
Okay. So how did your use progress as time went on? I know you said you started with a big dose, but how did it look as time went on?
So I kept up with that 3 to 4 times a day, and I just kept taking it, and I really liked it after working out. So it was a treat to take it after working out because it was like my artificial relaxation. So I'd work out really hard, get the endorphins for that, kick it into overdrive with 10 grams of kratom, and then get into a sauna for 30 minutes. And it was almost like a religious experience. And
Yeah.
it got to the point where I was upstairs and my wife, just to let you know, extracts and 7-O are coming on the story. So here we are. It got to the point where I was getting so paranoid. I'm not an anxious person. I'm learning what that word is. I'm not, I'm a positive person, but man, was I paranoid. I was paranoid and anxious, and it was a thing where I couldn't tell you why. I just thought doom, paranoia, and I was sitting in my room upstairs, and I'm like, bad is going to happen. And I went downstairs, and I just looked at my wife, and I sat on the couch. I said, "Hey, that stuff I'm taking, it's causing me extreme anxiety, and I need help. Will you help me?" And she said, "Yes, I'll help you." And so we found kratom in a pill form, and we would order it online. And it came in about 300 milligram pills. And it wasn't a strain that I liked, but it was a strain that worked. And she helped me dose down. And it was slow, but we did it. We did it together. She took the doses, she handed them to me, and we just daily. And so I'm a big, I don't know what cold turkey is except for jumping off on the last dose, but I do believe in taper. It worked for me, especially if you have a grown up like my wife helping you. She was really diligent about helping me. And man, you feel like a child standing at 6 a.m. next to the bed asking for your pills. And that itself is humbling too. But she helped me do that. We took a trip. It just got in the way of everything. We couldn't go anywhere. When we did, I had to have enough. I had to go try to find ways that I could get away from her so I could go buy more. We went to Tahoe. That was a mess. We went to Hawaii. You should have seen that. That was tactical, the way I had to get over there. I had to buy it over there. I found it in a chocolate form. I found it was like it was like a Hershey's chocolate bar, but I had to make sure there was a dose waiting for me when I got off the plane here at the house. I had stashed it. It was like Ocean's 11 playing
Hmm.
this Kratom game. And then in that fall of that year, so May to about November, I was on it, and then she helped me get off, and then I had 2 surgeries that were coming up. I had broken my shoulder riding my bike, and I had a hernia, so I knew I was gonna be off for 3 months. I thought, "This is great, I'm gonna get off of it." So, I went into this surgery and the anesthesiologist comes to me, and I said, "Hey, what" I take Kratom. I said, "I've really gotten down to a low dose." And of course, she's doing the classic, "Got no idea what that is. Let's look it up." She's literally on her phone next to the bed 20 minutes before she's putting me out, Googling what Kratom is. She's like, "No, no, this is fine. This looks fine. This looks like coffee." And I'm like, "Man, you have no idea."
No,
And
I know.
so I had the surgeries. They went well. I was off for that time, and I had gotten so it filled the hole. So it helped. I didn't take the Kratom, so I wasn't taking it for a while. And then I found it again. It didn't find me. I found it, but I found it in extract form, and that's where the extracts came in.
Okay, so when you said you went and found it, did you go to a smoke shop or something
Yeah,
like that? Mm.
never been in a smoke shop in my life. So I'm 56, 57 years old, and I got time on my hands now. I got my arm in a sling, and I just Google Kratom, and it says down the street. So I would take a walk every day to stay busy, and that was my walk. I would stuff 3 or 4 of the extract bottles in my sling. No one knew I was carrying them around. I come home with them, and I figured it was more cost effective. I didn't have to
Mhm.
drive an hour away. And what was funny was, oh, it's not funny. It's the way that it is. I would start with the first bottle, then get to the stronger, and like 4 incantations of strength, and I ended up at of course, more bang for your bucks. Came in 30 milliliters. But there was no way to measure it. It just had a top on it, and I was like, "Man," I would try to dab a little bit, pour it into a cup and drink it, and I could probably get 5 or 6 servings out of one of those, but I didn't know how much I was getting, so sometimes it was strong, sometimes it wasn't, and then I have a beard, so I had beard oil, and I had a beard oil container with a droplet thing in it that's screwed into the top, and I went, "I wonder if this'll." I took the top off of the extract bottle, took the droplet thing off of my what do they call it? Tincture. I took it off my beard oil, and it fit perfect, and so I could dole myself out 2 milliliters or 2 yeah, that's what it is, 2 at a time, and, of course, it went from a serving was 2, but then it got to I could get 2 only 2 doses out of each bottle when it was 5 or 6, and so I was out there. I was one of those guys who wouldn't buy in bulk. I would ask for, "Hey, will you sell me this?" If I buy more, he would, but I was like, "No, this is the last one I'm buying, so I'm not gonna really I'll buy 1 or 2." And they would ask me, "What is this stuff you're buying?" And I'm like, "You don't know?" And they're like, "No, we just know people come here and buy it." I'm like, "It's hard to explain." I said, "I'm trying to get off of opiates." I made up some excuse. I said, "And this helps with the pain." And it does. It helps with the pain. But, and as a matter of fact, that brand that I would buy, after a while, started to come with a tincture with it. After they changed the packaging, and man, they made the packaging look good. I know what it looks like. It's almost stimulating to my eyes to see that. It's exciting to this day to talk about it. I don't want to romance it, but that's just the way that it is.
I noticed in the beginning they were real cheap looking, and then of
Oh,
everyone starts buying them in masses, and of course their packaging starts looking beautiful and
oh,
they're coming out with all these bright colors and this exciting fun stuff, and it's very aesthetically pleasing when you walk in and you see it. And from the beginning starting to people not knowing what it was to now the good packaging. That's I noticed that too, exactly.
yeah. They had a wall of it in pill and powder form, was not interested in that at all. I wanted those. I wanted some sort of liquid extract, and I would try different ones, and I just kinda always went back to the same one, and I would try to taper. I'd find some online. We get a code where it was half off, and I'd buy it there, and it never got the usage never got smaller. It always got more. But then I went back to work. Had the 3 months off, I went back to work, and then I'm just using it at work, and I'm just to have to sneak this stuff and go to the bathroom all the time and take a small bottle with you, and I would hack that stuff down straight out of the tincture, which is it's like swallowing glass. It just was caustic, but man, you just learn to just love it, and a few minutes in, 15, 20 minutes later, you're on the chill again, and you're confident, and you're making your sales calls, and nothing can stop you. Until one day they didn't have it, and I was like, "What else do you got here?" And he pointed to a blister pack, and that was 7 though,
Yeah.
and that's a whole 'nother story.
When you bought that, did the gas station people or the smoke shop people didn't know what the extract was? Did they know what the blister pack 70H was?
Oh, no. No.
Mm-mm.
I They would have charged 4 times as much if they knew what it was, 'cause you anybody who came in there would have paid it, I'm sure
Yeah.
of it. It doesn't take a genius to figure out how to make a lot of money. You're gonna give them what they want. But it's
Right.
just it looks I can't explain it to you. The blister packs don't look as exciting, the ones I took. They just are information. But what's in there, the first time I took, it was eye-opening, and then they had at the smoke shop, one of them had a friend there, and they go, "Hey, what is that stuff?" And I said, "It's just like Vicodin." "Really?" And I'm not gonna explain it too much more to you,
Right.
is what the way that I felt in my head. I'm like, "Nobody needs to know about this. I'll just keep this to myself." But I'll tell you what, I didn't want anybody to see me going in there. I didn't want Oh, man, it was bad. We have an app that we share location, my wife and I. I would turn off the location. I would leave my phone places. You just become an awful person. Now, that being said, the 7-0, I only bought about 3.5 packs of that stuff, and I took it for about a week and a half because something in me knew that if you start taking this, you're going to jails, institutions, and death. You do not have the capability to ride this bull. And I don't know what it was, but it stopped me. The feeling was too good. I would take about one, a serving was a half. I took one and a half, and it did the trick. Now I don't want to romance it, and I'm scared of this stuff. And to the day, I'm scared of anybody who takes one of those. I really am because they're not informed. They don't know what they're taking. The person handing it to them doesn't know what they're giving them, but it's super dangerous stuff. But I don't know how I had the wherewithal at that point. Maybe it was just perfect timing. It was time to stop. But that's when basically my stop happened. I handed everything to my wife. I had plenty of stuff. I just handed it all to her. And it took me so I started in May of 24. And then in July of 25 is when I finally did stop. And it took another taper that she helped me with. I stood at the end of the bed every morning and she gave me my doses. And we did it. And it was not easy, but we did it. As a matter of fact, 4 days after my stop, I had a pink cloud day and I rode my bike for 100 miles. Can't even believe that I did that because the next day I was not because of riding the bike, but because I was in withdrawals. I don't know what happened, but
Yeah.
the withdrawals and the July taper was just gnarly. It just was
Yeah.
gnarly.
It is so rough. So when you decided, okay, today's the day I got to give this to my wife, what happened then that day that made you say enough is enough?
A couple of things, man, I get them confused, some of the quits, but I would end up I called her a couple times when I was at work. I said, you need to come down here. I'm having a problem." And she just would show up. She doesn't understand, but she knows I need something. She would show up, pick me up, and I just would be down at the end of the street bawling in the front seat of the car, telling her, "This has got me." It was almost like an entity. I said, "I can't kick this. I don't know what's happening to me. I'm useless." I couldn't go to the bathroom. I was having to assist myself to do that. It just was demoralizing. It was dehumanizing, and I was just like, "I need help." And you know what? She's the type that's not gonna sit there and wag her finger at me. She's more like, "I'm here for you, but I can't do this for you." And it was it's being married all these years, we're the perfect match for each other because she gives me exactly what I need. Because I needed the responsibility of handling it myself, but with a little bit of assistance. And I think you do need to go through the bad time. There has to be a reference point where you go, "I'm not getting my ass kicked like that again," until you
Yeah.
decide, "I'm gonna get my ass kicked like that again."
What happened with me, and I agree with you on that whole having to have the responsibility, because I think the first couple of times I've quit things, somebody's told me I have to do it. And I think that having that power in you to say, enough, today's the day, I got to stop. We have to go through that. We have to get to that point where it's us that we're making that step out to say, I can't do it anymore.
So I stayed clean at that point for about 8 months, and I finally put a tracker on my phone, a clean tracker, and I would show it to her every once in a while. It got to 100 days, it got to 200 days. I'm like, "Look." I'm like, "Man, I can't believe I don't even think about this anymore." And she's like, "Good." And you know what? She keeps Kratom in the we have a lockbox with some of the medications that are here. And if you had oral surgery, you'd have a few Vicodins left over. She has those. Any normal person would never touch. They take 1 out of 30. I'm gonna take 30 in the first 2 days. But she's got all that stuff. And she found Kratom good for her if she was like maybe once a week. And I'm like, "Man, I don't know how you do that." And so she kept it around, but we kept it locked up. So I was cruising along for the 8 months, and I just got they say that I do NA and AA now, and they say the hardest chip when the chip person, if you're into that, in the NA, they say the chip that they very rarely have to go replenish when they go buy chips is the 9-month chip because no one ever takes one. For some reason, they get to 6 months and they just fall off the wagon, and I heard that in a share. And I went, "Wait a minute, July, August, September, February," and I went 8.5 months, and I didn't get I wasn't taking chips then, but
Mhm.
it was 8.5 months, and for
Mm.
some reason, after work one day, I this was back this last February. So I was clean from July to February, and I just thought, "Man, I deserve a break today," and I went and bought 3 of the blue bottles. I'd never taken that stuff in my life. Didn't know what it tasted like, didn't know anything. And they had just stopped selling it in the county that I'm in. But everybody was like tapering down from their stash. So he had like 11, 12 bottles sitting in the back. I said, "Hey, you got any Kratom?" "No, we can't sell it here anymore." But I got these. I go, "Give me a few of those." And then that was it.
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
next 2 days I was back to my regular extracts. And
Mhm.
then I was back to taking it like I normally did. Now, fortunately, I didn't get back to 7.0 though, but I was taking
Yeah.
those extracts. My mom had a stroke. I had to deal with her for a few weeks. It came in super handy, and then it just got to the point where I had to come clean again to my wife and say, "Hey, for the last 3 or 4 months, I've been taking it again." And we did the same thing, rinse and repeat. We got
Yeah.
the pills, we got the taper program down, and I tapered again. But this time, it was bad. My withdrawals on this the withdrawals back in November when I had surgery and whatnot were nothing. This was not good. So 44
Yeah.
days ago, I was not in good shape.
So what helped you with that in the first couple days or the first couple weeks? What helped?
I tried before a lot of the supplements. I went online, got onto the Reddits, look, but nothing helped. Nothing. And so I do take some supplements just for because I try to be healthy, but the restless legs I'd never had before, they were in full effect. The
That's
sleepless
nice.
nights, it was in full effect. The doom, it was in full effect. And I was convinced I've wrecked myself. That's it. I've done it. And then there's a whole nother story, but I started going back. I thought, you know what? Maybe NA and NA can help me like they did before. And I showed up at a meeting again about 40 days ago, and it that has helped me. That has helped me a lot. And I went in there and complained every time I went in. I don't feel good. I don't feel good. And they listened to me. And I got to say that. And not until about 8 days ago. So it took about a month and a week before I started feeling like myself again, and I feel a lot better now. And I had a I wanted to go use every day. Every day I wanted to go use after this stop. But it's finally after 44 days, and I don't expect it to stay this way. I expect to have bad days again, but I'm prepared for them. I'm super because I have people to call now. I have meetings that I go to. I never really work the steps. I'm planning on starting to work the steps, but I'm skipping all over the place. But that's how it's I don't know. When you get in this, it just starts to blend together. And what I do know is that there's a ritual there. I'm running out. Ooh, I get to go get it. I got it. I get to use it. And now the rest of my next 2 days are planned.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I cannot plan. I just know the next 2 days I'm going to be where I want and I'll deal with it tomorrow. Tomorrow, Ron was going to deal with it.
Yep. Yep, I know, same with me, and you know what, something that I lied to myself about was I'll get enough to last me for the whole day, and that way I won't have to go back to the store and embarrass myself, and that stuff that I would get in the beginning of the day would not it started to just not even last me till the evening, and I had to go to different stores, and just staying away from all those stores was the best thing for me, just don't even walk in. What do you so you said you go to meetings, is there anything else that you do at home or any kind of practice that you do at home to help you to with those mental obsessions?
Not really. I'm a religious person, so I believe in prayer, and I don't ask for it to take the compulsion away. I just have to deal with it and just get moments. I know that if you get moments of all you need is a small moment of clarity, and it works for a long time. And then you just stay busy. And I find that for me, you don't have to tell everybody, but you need to tell somebody. And it can't be my wife. She just looks at me like, I'm hearing you, but I have no idea what you're talking about. But when you talk to another addict, now I haven't shared this with any of my friends. They don't know this. And especially my friend who still takes it, whose house I was over on July 4th after I was clean for only a week or so. There it was on his counter. They were all outside. I'm in the house and there's 4 or 5 different strains of kratom and I could have taken it. And I just kept telling myself, but what are you going to do when it wears off? Well, what are you going to do when it wears off? And I thought, it's just not. And then at that point, you're like, you're battling yourself. And that voice, I heard somebody say one day, you think that sinister voice in your head you listen to, that's you. That sinister voice is you. And you got to come to terms with you're the person who's saying that. It's not some evil force. You need to quiet that noise. And I learned in treatment a long time ago that you need to it's like the house that has the vicious dog on the porch. You just walk quieter past that house. Just leave that dog on the porch and don't wake him up. Or you can go rattle the gate. You can jump in the yard with him if you want. But that's what you just need to do. Do nothing to awake that in you. Because once you do, you just know, play the tape. Everybody says it. Play the tape. I know how the Titanic sinks. The Titanic does not stay. Jack floats down, Rose floats away. It's just the whole thing happens. You just know what happened. And that's basically what got through that. But going to the meeting and almost feeling embarrassed that it's kratom. It took me a while to finally say the word. And I would first say that I got it at a smoke shop, and one guy comes to me, one old timers, and walks up and he goes, "Hey, you're on that Kratom stuff, aren't you?" And I go, "How do you know?" He goes, "That stuff's messed up, dude. You got to stop that." And I'm like, "Holy smokes!" He's like screaming it out loud in front of everybody. And I go, he goes, "I have a sponsee who's got messed up with that." And I'm like, "You're looking at number two if he's the first person." So
Mhm.
I still have a hard time saying it, but I'm not going forward. I'm not a big I don't like to sit there and romance what I used to take. I'm more into why I did it, why I feel so confident that I can handle it this time. Because it bleeds into other parts of my life too, which the 12 steps helps a lot of your parts of your life. But supplements and stuff like that, it's just I wish there was a shortcut for me. There just wasn't. The only thing that would help was more kratom, and I just couldn't. I just couldn't do that. And you just really learn to enjoy a good night's sleep. You really learn to enjoy clarity. And nowadays, I'm like looking and going, man, I'm dealing with this with clarity. And one of the things that I went through, which is a regret, but I'm learning to let it go. My daughter got married last April, and I was dosing hard. I was the father of the bride, and I was present and all that, but it's just tough knowing that you're gonna have to break and leave to take a substance. At 3 times. You're like and you're just showing up and everybody's looking at you, and it's not your day, but it's a day. It's one of the days you're looking forward to, and you're just sweating, and you're dreading coming down. You're making sure you had enough, and it's completely undignifying. It's completely undignifying.
And it's so isolating. It's just this private struggle that we're embarrassed to let anybody know. And then when you tell people, they don't know what you're talking about. And it's really defeating because it's, what do you mean you don't know? What this is consuming my life. I need someone to know, which I think is why the podcast was so good for my sobrieties. These people know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, I do wanna say that about the podcast. I have listened to every episode, and now I'm back on episode 127 or 128. I've gone all the way through them again, and I have a job where I can file paperwork too, and I just listen to them. And nobody knows at work what I'm listening to. I'm listening to professionals. I'm listening to kids. I'm listening to day laborers. I'm listening to the house moms, and I just feel for these people. I want to put my arm around all of them and tell them just the loneliness. I want to be their friend because I know how lonely it is and how much you're doing what you don't want to do, but you just can't stop it. You have to get off that roller coaster. So you just have to come up with a plan and you have to stick to it.
Yep, and I think it's great that you have your wife that's so supportive. That's priceless to help you with that taper. I was unable to taper. I just was not able to do it. If I had it anywhere near me, I was taking it.
So you went
So it's
cold
really
turkey.
good. I was hospitalized. So I went to the hospital. Just I had taken so much 7-OH that I basically lost my mind, and I went to the hospital for a 3-day stay, and that's where I cold turkeyed. So it was rough.
And that's where I was headed. If I didn't have somebody, that's where I don't see how it doesn't head there. I don't know what where that road leads besides there.
No, I know, exactly, and with listening to the podcast too, like the tapers, the lockbox trick, I never knew those things, so I hope people that are listening will listen to the tricks that we have now as a community and pass that along because what works for one person may not work for the next, but there's another tool somewhere out there, and some people use Medicaid-assisted treatment. Some people use the tapering technique. It's just the last podcast I just did with Kara, the last that aired today. She went to Florida and went to a treatment center for that. So there's all kinds of ways we just need to get rid of the embarrassment and reach out for some help and some guidance. And I get it just wanting to the community of people that we have in this podcast are such cool people.
And I have mixed feelings about it, about availability and whether it should be regulated. I don't really get into that because I believe in my personal responsibility. I just know now if I had teenage kids, I would have a different dog in the fight. But as a grown man, I'm like, I'm responsible for me. I know what I'm doing. And that they sell it and that they do it, I don't know. I'll let them all figure it out. Maybe it does need to be, people do need to be warned about it a little bit more about what the potential is. It's not coffee. It's not just a 5-hour energy. And you go on the Reddits, we've all sat on Reddit for hours and just read people go back and forth. And the reality is the people who are proponents of it, to me, aren't understanding. They're not talking about, we're not talking about the product. We're talking about the person meets the product. And that's when you have the problem is it's
Mhm.
the wrong product for the wrong person. And when that happens, it's devastating. It's almost not even a choice. And once it takes the wheels that it takes over the steering wheel, you're done. And that's the way that it is with me. Now, I didn't know I had addiction problems until I was in my mid 30s. And I never drank really that much. I'd have too much maybe at a wedding and go, "Wow, I don't know," because didn't know when to stop. I thought, "Oh, I had too much," and I wasn't really an addiction person, but man, everything was a perfect storm, and it stirred up a storm in me that's gonna be work until the day that I die. So,
Right.
I think this time 12 steps is gonna be part of my life until and for many years now. I'm reaching out to have a sponsor to finally work the steps because I think it's just gonna help me as a person, period. But I don't know if at some point when you first start taking it, I think there's some moral issues, meaning it's bad for you, but then it's not anymore. You don't have a choice, and the morality is out the door. You had a moment to say no, and you had a moment to stop, but you let it go. It's just like anything bad in life that's not good for you. You had a moment, it's gone. And
Yeah.
now what do we do? What do we do to get it back? So, and they don't teach this in anywhere. You're right. You have to just pick up pieces here and there. You have to say, oh, that worked for you. That didn't work for you. Because we sure as heck found out how to make our drug use worse. We were intuitive enough how to find a way to make it really bad. So we can find a way to make it good. But it takes waking up every morning and deciding this is not what I'm going to do and this is what I'm going to do for my sobriety. So when you're walking out the door and they're like, "Oh, you're going to go to another meeting tonight?" I don't have a choice. This is what it's going to take for me to be clean this time.
Exactly. So now, 45, 44 days later, what are like maybe 3 or 4 things that you've noticed already that are better, that are different?
Okay, first of all, I gained a lot of weight. I don't lose weight on this journey. I don't know what it is. Actually gained weight. So I'm looking forward to losing weight. I got more clarity in being able to do that. You can be more goal oriented in that way in your fitness and whatnot. Of course, now I'm regular in the bathroom. That's fine. Your sex drive comes back. That's a real thing because your partner thinks there's something wrong with them. It's just when you had a normal sex life and then it just drops off and you just don't want it because kratom is better than sex. Why would you want that? And it just dulls everything. That has been there. There's a little bit more planning. I feel like I have more energy. In sales, as you get older, you lack energy, so you have to be more strategic. You can't be strategic on kratom. So when you're not on kratom, I just feel sharper. I feel like I see the events happening. I can understand what's going on. And people can see the difference in me. They literally can see the difference in me. And I was like, I don't curse a lot. I don't hardly ever use the F word, but I remember F bombing in a Thrifties after getting ice cream one evening, a friend of mine, and I'm like looking at my wife, she's looking at me like, what's happening to you? And it just turned me into it would just turn me into these emotions would come out and it was super scary at that point. And I don't feel that way anymore. I feel super motivated, super chill again, and it's exciting to feel this way. So I have a couple of trips planned, which I could not have planned. You can't go out of state. You can't fly. You can't go to people's special events. You can't do any of that. And now it's like I'm completely liberated. I don't even have to think about that anymore. That alone is worth the price of admission.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. So I have one more question. What is your top tip for someone that's getting ready to quit kratom? What would you tell them to do?
I said it earlier, you don't have to tell everybody, but you gotta tell somebody, and it typically and this is the rule, tell somebody that it's gonna cost you the most with, because they will forgive you. If you put in the work, they may not believe your words, but they're gonna believe your work. So if you're just saying words, then don't bother, but if you really gonna put the work in behind it, then just look at them and tell them, you're gonna help me, please. I'm gonna do this work and we're gonna see this through together and it'll work. Go to a meeting. NA and AA might be hokey to you. It may not be your thing. It will help in a interim time and it can fill a void. It really can. Get working towards a chip means something. When they tell you all you need to do to come to this meeting is have a desire to quit and you are accepted, you feel great. When I heard those words again, I forgot those words. Anybody's welcome that has a desire. And I'm like, I was on Kratom when I went to the first couple of meetings, but I said, man, I have a desire and I belong here. And then I quit and I'm like, I can take my welcome chip. I wouldn't take a welcome chip until I had stopped taking Kratom. I took that welcome chip. I took my 30-day chip, and I'm looking forward to that 60-day chip. And now I'm looking at people come in their first week, and you just look at them, and you're like, I don't want to go backwards. It's like being in line at an amusement park, the 2 hour line to your favorite ride, and you wait hour and a half, and you look back, and you're like, oh, I'm glad I'm not getting in the line right now.
Exactly, that's a great way, that's a great way
I'm
to put it.
almost on the ride, and you're not. A fool would get out of line and go to the back again.
Yep,
You'd be a fool. And I don't wanna
absolutely.
get out of that line. But I'm not stupid enough to think that this can't happen again. The smoke shop is I can walk there in 5 minutes from here, and I know they got what
Mhm.
I want. What I want, not what I need, but I'm not gonna do that because I built a support system around me now, and I'm super hopeful, and I did it before, and I know that I can do it again.
Yep, alright. Thank you so much for being here tonight and for grabbing and getting with me so quickly, I appreciate it.
That's not a problem. I really do appreciate the show. I know it's a labor of love and it comes through. Every episode it comes through. And you folks are super you understand and there's no judgment. How could you judge? We've just been beaten down so hard and it feels good. It feels good to be part of the community.
Welcome, and I'm glad that you were able to be with us tonight.